Back in the earlier days, when Craigslist was still a popular platform for buying and selling, I decided to browse the listings in search of a good deal. My apartment needed some new furniture, and I figured I might find something affordable. One evening, I stumbled upon an ad that caught my attention. A vintage oak dining table in excellent condition, listed at a price that seemed too good to be true. The seller, who went by the name Max, had posted a few pictures of the table. It looked gorgeous, with ornate carvings and a rich, dark finish. I decided to reach out to Max and arrange to meet at his house to check out the table. The address he provided led me to a quiet, suburban neighborhood. As I parked in front of his house, I noticed how well-maintained the property was. I knocked on the door, and Max, a middle-aged man with a friendly smile, greeted me. He welcomed me inside, and I was immediately struck by the odd assortment of items cluttering his living room. Antique clocks, porcelain dolls, and dusty old books. Max led me to the dining room where the table stood, just as beautiful as it appeared in the photos. I couldn't believe my luck. We negotiated the price, and it was even more of a steal than I had hoped. Eager to seal the deal, I agreed to purchase it and arranged to come back the next day with a friend and a van to pick it up. That night, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. Max had been friendly, but something about his home had felt off. I chalked it up to my overactive imagination and the fact that I'd be returning with a friend. The following afternoon, my friend Sarah and I arrived at Max's house to collect the table. He greeted us warmly and helped us load it into the van. As we were about to leave, Max asked if we could help him with one more thing: a large, heavy box he needed to move from the attic. Being the helpful people we were, we agreed. Max led us to the attic, where the air was thick with the musty scent of old belongings. He pointed to a large, sealed cardboard box and said it contained his late wife's belongings. He explained that he couldn't bear to go through it alone. We reluctantly agreed to help him bring it downstairs. As we carried the box down the narrow attic stairs, the weight felt substantial, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. That's when I noticed a faint, coppery smell emanating from the box. My heart raced, and I exchanged a nervous glance with Sarah. Max seemed oblivious to our discomfort. Once the box was safely in the living room, he thanked us profusely and gave us a little extra cash for our trouble. We left his house as quickly as we could, the unsettling feeling growing with every step. Sarah and I had no intention of returning to Max's house after our eerie encounter with the heavy box from the attic. The strange smell and the odd collection of items in his living room had left us deeply unsettled. I couldn't shake the suspicion that there was more to Max's story than he'd let on. Over the next few days, I kept an eye on Craigslist for any news articles or suspicious activity in my area. I couldn't help but wonder if Max had a darker side. As I dug deeper, I found a local news report that sent shivers down my spine. The report detailed a shocking discovery: human remains found in the basement of a house just a few blocks from Max's residence. The authorities were investigating, but they had yet to identify the victim or make any arrests. The connection was too eerie to ignore. I contacted the police and shared my concerns, providing them with Max's address and details about our encounter. They assured me they would investigate. A few days later, I received a call from a detective who asked me to come down to the police station to provide a statement. I met with him and explained everything, from the Craigslist ad to our unsettling visit to Max's house and the mysterious box from the attic. The detective assured me they were taking the matter seriously and would look into Max's background and his potential connection to the human remains found nearby. I left the police station with a mix of relief and anxiety, grateful that I had reported my concerns, but haunted by the sinister possibilities. Weeks went by without any updates from the police. I began to worry that my tip had led to a dead end. Then, one evening, I received a call from the detective. He asked me to come back to the station to provide more information. When I arrived, the detective informed me that they had obtained a search warrant for Max's house. What they discovered sent shockwaves through the community. In the basement, Hidden beneath a false floor, they found evidence linking Max to the human remains found earlier. It turned out that Max had a history of criminal activity, and the Craigslist ad was likely a ploy to lure unsuspecting victims to his home. My reporting of the odd encounter with the heavy box had played a crucial role in uncovering his crimes. Max was arrested and charged with multiple counts of murder and kidnapping. The community was shaken by the revelation, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief knowing that we had helped bring a dangerous criminal to justice. As the trial unfolded, the chilling details of Max's crimes began to emerge. He had meticulously planned and executed a series of abductions, luring victims through fake Craigslist ads for various odd jobs and house cleaning services. Once they arrived at his home, he would incapacitate them and then hold them captive in his basement. The evidence against Max was overwhelming. The authorities found restraints, weapons, and disturbing photographs in his basement that revealed the extent of his depravity. His victims' stories were equally harrowing, recounting the terror they endured at his hands. During the trial, Max showed no remorse for his actions. He maintained a sinister calmness, as if he took pleasure in the fear and suffering he had inflicted upon his victims. It sent shivers down the spines of everyone in the courtroom. As the legal proceedings continued, the community grappled with the shock of having a serial kidnapper and murderer living among them. People were more cautious about online interactions and meeting strangers from the internet. The dark underbelly of Craigslist had been exposed, and many reevaluated their online safety practices. Max was ultimately found guilty on all charges, and the judge sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. It was a relief for the victims and their families, knowing that he would never harm anyone again. But the scars ran deep in our neighborhood. The sense of security we once had was forever shattered, and we became more vigilant, watching out for one another. Back in 2014, I found myself in a bit of a financial bind. Bills were piling up, and my dead-end job wasn't cutting it. Desperation led me to scour Craigslist for odd jobs that could help me make ends meet. One evening, while scrolling through the gigs section, I stumbled upon an intriguing post. The title read, "Night Shift Opportunity, Generous Compensation." It caught my attention immediately. The ad detailed a well-paying night shift job at a warehouse, providing no specific details about the nature of the work. It was shrouded in mystery, but the promise of quick cash was too enticing to resist. With no other viable options, I replied to the ad, and within hours, I received a response from an individual named Mr. Blackwood. His email was succinct, containing only an address and a time to meet. There was an aura of secrecy surrounding the whole affair that both intrigued and concerned me. The following night, I found myself standing outside a massive, decrepit warehouse on the outskirts of town. The place looked like it had seen better days, its windows broken and its walls covered in graffiti. I hesitated for a moment, questioning my decision to be here. But financial desperation drove me forward. Inside, the warehouse was even more intimidating. A dimly lit corridor led to a room where I met Mr. Blackwood for the first time. He was a tall, gaunt man with sharp, calculating eyes that seemed to pierce through my very soul. His demeanor was formal and cold, his words measured and deliberate. Mr. Blackwood wasted no time explaining the job. It involved working the night shift, keeping a close watch over a mysterious crate in the heart of the warehouse. He emphasized the importance of never allowing the crate to be exposed to light and forbade any attempt to open or inquire about its contents. The compensation he offered was more than generous, and I reluctantly agreed to take the job. Little did I know that my decision would lead me down a path filled with secrets, terror, and a darkness that defied explanation. My first few shifts were uneventful. The warehouse was eerily quiet, with only the distant hum of machinery echoing through the vast, dimly lit space. I kept a watchful eye on the mysterious crate, ensuring it remained in perpetual darkness. As the days turned into weeks, I began to grow restless. Mr. Blackwood seldom made an appearance, leaving me alone for long stretches of time. It was during one of these solitary shifts that I first noticed something peculiar. One night, as I patrolled the warehouse with a flashlight in hand, I caught a glimpse of a shadowy figure out of the corner of my eye. Startled, I swung the beam of light towards the source, but there was nothing there. I dismissed it as a trick of my tired mind, chalking it up to the isolation and the strange atmosphere of the place. But the sightings continued, each time more vivid and unsettling. I would glimpse fleeting figures in the periphery, hear whispers carried on the wind that seemed to emanate from nowhere. I began to question my own sanity, wondering if the solitary nights were taking a toll on my mind. One evening, driven by a growing sense of unease, I decided to investigate the warehouse more thoroughly. Armed with my flashlight, I ventured deeper into its labyrinthine corridors, where I stumbled upon a hidden chamber. Inside, I found a series of ancient-looking symbols etched onto the walls, their purpose and meaning shrouded in obscurity. The air in the chamber was thick with an otherworldly presence, and I could feel an oppressive weight bearing down on me. My heart raced as I realized that this warehouse held secrets far darker than I could have ever imagined. Whatever Mr. Blackwood was involved in, it was a web of mysteries, and I had unwittingly become entangled in its threads. My discovery of the hidden chamber deepened my obsession with unraveling the enigma surrounding Mr. Blackwood and the warehouse. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, monitored by some unseen presence. The spectral figures and whispers grew more pronounced, their intent inscrutable. I delved into researching the symbols etched on the chamber walls, seeking answers to their origins and purpose. Days turned into sleepless nights as I pored over ancient texts and obscure references. It became clear that the symbols were tied to a sinister ritual, one that harnessed otherworldly powers. As I dug deeper, I stumbled upon unsettling truths about Mr. Blackwood. He was not merely a reclusive warehouse owner, but a practitioner of the occult, a man who had struck a dark bargain with forces beyond human comprehension. The crate that had arrived weeks ago held an entity, an ancient being of malevolent intent. With this revelation, my fear transformed into determination. I couldn't allow the sinister ritual to be completed, nor could I let Mr. Blackwood's malevolent plans come to fruition. Armed with my newfound knowledge, I prepared for a confrontation. One fateful night, as the warehouse seemed to hum with an unnatural energy, I confronted Mr. Blackwood. With a courage I didn't know I possessed, I demanded answers. He admitted to his pact with the entity and his intentions to unleash it upon the world. He believed that the chaos it would bring would serve his twisted vision of a new order. Our confrontation escalated into a frantic struggle. The warehouse itself seemed to come alive, the symbols on the walls glowing with an eerie light. The spectral figures manifested around us, bearing witness to our battle. In the end, it was not physical strength but sheer determination that prevailed. With a final surge of willpower, I disrupted the ritual, preventing the entity's release. Mr. Blackwood's malevolent plans were thwarted, and he vanished into the shadows, his fate unknown. The warehouse returned to its former silence, and the enigmatic symbols on the chamber walls faded away. The spectral figures and whispers dissipated, leaving me with a haunting memory of my nightmarish ordeal. I resigned from my position at the warehouse, knowing that I could never truly escape the darkness that had consumed it. The enigma of Mr. Blackwood and the malevolent entity remained unsolved, a chilling reminder of the horrors lurking in the night shift. And so, dear reader, I share this tale as a warning to those who dare to tread the desolate corridors of the night shift, where mysteries and malevolence await those who seek answers in the darkest of places. Back in 2015, I was a broke college student searching for a room to rent. Money was tight, and Craigslist was my lifeline for finding affordable housing. I came across an ad that piqued my interest, a spacious room in a charming old house at an unbelievably low price. The ad was posted by a guy that I will call Mark for privacy reasons, who described himself as a friendly and quiet individual. His brief message mentioned that he was rarely home due to his job's demands and welcomed a quiet roommate. The rent was ridiculously cheap, and I couldn't believe my luck. Mark seemed amiable when we met in person, and the room was as impressive as the photos. I decided to move in right away. Little did I know that my decision would lead me into a nightmarish situation. The first few weeks were uneventful. I hardly saw Mark, just as he had described. He would leave early in the morning and return late at night. It was like having the entire house to myself. However, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Strange noises at night, like whispers and footsteps, would echo through the old house. I brushed it off as the house's natural creaks and sounds, but my unease continued to grow. One night, as I lay in bed, I heard the whispers again. But this time they were accompanied by laughter. It sounded like Mark was having a conversation with someone, but I was certain he was home alone. The voices grew louder and I could make out words, but they were in a language I couldn't understand. Terrified and unable to sleep, I decided to investigate. I quietly made my way down the hallway to Mark's room. The door was slightly ajar and the eerie glow of candlelight seeped out from within. I pushed the door open and was met with a chilling sight. Inside the room were several lit candles arranged in a circle. Mark stood in the center. His eyes rolled back, and he chanted words I couldn't comprehend. Surrounding him were three strangers, all dressed in dark robes, their faces obscured. I watched in horror as Mark's body convulsed, and his voice grew more sinister with each word. Before I could react, one of the robed figures noticed me in the doorway. Panic surged through me as they all turned to stare. Mark's eyes snapped open and he grinned, revealing rows of sharpened teeth. The room grew colder, and I felt an oppressive, malevolent presence. I turned and bolted out of the house, not looking back until I was a safe distance away. My heart raced, and my mind struggled to process the surreal encounter. I never returned to that house, and I reported the incident to the police. They investigated but found no trace of Mark or the mysterious figures. To this day, I have no explanation for what I witnessed that night. Whether it was a cult, a sinister ritual, or something otherworldly, I'm grateful I escaped unharmed.